All right. Hey guys, Chris Dunn here, and we are back with another great interview today. We have John Carter. John, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, Chris. Yeah. I'll be a little groggy today because it's been a crazy trading week, but in a good way.
Absolutely. So, for anybody that doesn't know John, John's the founder of TradeTheMarkets.com. He's a really great guy, an amazing trader. And I just wanted to pick his brains and kind of have him drop some knowledge bombs on you guys about what he's doing, what's working. For anybody that doesn't know, John's kind of famous for last year, he made over $1 million on one trade, right?
Yeah, that was kind of insane. And we do our futures trading at tradethemarkets.com, and then simpleroptions.com is where we do the options trading. And then so Tesla, it was, and happy to talk more about it, but it was the most amount of money I've made in that quick of a time. So it was a real crazy kind of a thing, but everything came together. It was a short squeeze, a turnaround, just loaded up on some option contracts, ended up making $1 million in one day. First time that ever happened. It was just like, it's all, as a trader, it's awesome, right? You're just kind of like, okay, that was cool.
Yeah, that's like a career milestone that everybody just wants to like check off at one point. That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome, man. So let's give everybody like a quick elevator pitch or quick history on like where you came from, what you do, how you trade, and then we'll just kind of take it from there and have a conversation about trading.
Sure. So the short version is in high school, I had my father. He was a broker. He actually still is a broker. And he just kind of got me into the markets. I never really wanted to be a broker or anything. It just wasn't my thing. But I just was always fascinated by the markets. So I went through college. I went and worked as a financial analyst for like 4 years. But that whole time I was always, reading the paper. I started going to Investors Business daily classes. And at some point, it was just like, I really want to do this full time. And so after, I think it was about 8 years or so, kind of, going back and forth, I started going full time. Full time, the first 3 months was horrible. I was so excited because like, wow, I get to watch the screens full time, and Maria Bartiromo is going to be right here next to me, and overtraded, all the classic mistakes. Got a hold of Mark Douglas's book. That kind of changed my trading life from a discretionary perspective. And then from there,
trading in the zone, or
trading in the zone, yeah. And we've had Mark come and speak and stuff like that. He's amazing. I think he just gets the trader mindset so well. And then after that, it was after about 3 years, I started noticing that the Nasdaq was rolling over, like in 2000, and I just kind of started posting stuff like, this is crazy. We should be shorting this, and after a while, it just kind of turned into a following. And then after a little while, I was like, wow, maybe there's a way to monetize this. I mean, I had no idea. And it's just kind of slowly grown from there. But my passion's always been trading. And then it kind of developed into, it's kind of fun teaching trading. And it's kind of fun, learning the technology and stuff like that. And then at some point along the way, McGraw-Hill asked to write a book. So I, spent a year of my life. It was hard. Writing a book is hard. But that came out, Mastering the Trade, and that was fun. And these days, it's just kind of it's fun just trying to grow the business, just because if the business is growing, that means you're doing something right. You're providing good value. But most importantly, I just like to trade, and the freedom that comes from trading, and just being able to do it from anywhere. And, it's always, I always say that the markets are always kind of my psychologist. If my ego is too big, the market's going to keep me in check, that kind of thing. So you kind of know you're really well balanced if you're able to kind of follow your trading plan with, no hidden agendas or BS and stuff like that. So
yeah, and I just got to say, like, shameless plug, I don't recommend a lot of trading books. I think there's a lot of fluff and a lot of like outdated stuff, but your book is one of the few like really solid, very, very helpful books that just gives, a great perspective on not just your history, but like the mental side of trading and kind of how to sift through a lot of the BS in the trading industry. So I just got to give you kudos, man. I love your book.
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. It's, hey, life of a trader. Only traders understand.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like until you risk money or lose a little bit of money, you can't really quite appreciate it. But if you read it before you start trading and then you read it like after a year, you'll go, oh, okay, I get it now. Like all this, it makes sense now. Because it's like the mental side. It's so intangible that a lot of people, until you put big trades on or until you lose some money, you don't really know who you are as a trader. Do you have any like tips or any like, if there's one thing that you could give a new trader that could maybe help them with that side of the equation, what would that be?
Yeah, well, so part of it is it's building up what I call your intestinal fortitude. So, the first time I lost $1,000, I threw up. The next time it wasn't so bad, that kind of a thing. But the reality of it is that, and it took me a long time to figure this out. And this is not an original thought from me. I got it from Mark Douglas. But the best thing you can do is on each and every trade, you got to have 100% conviction. Okay. 100% conviction that anything can happen. And if you don't, you're screwed, because how many people have put on a trade going like, oh, this trade's going to lose? No, you only put on a trade if you think it's going to win. So with that mindset, you're going to double down. You're going to do all these stupid things that I've done before. But if you go into a trade, 100% conviction that anything can happen, then you're going to focus on your risk. You're going to be objective, all that kind of stuff. And I think the whole art of trading is being able to do that on every trade. Because what happens is, the reality of it is, what most people fall in the trap of doing is the trade they're taking right now, their mindset is a direct reflection of their last two trades. So if their last two trades sucked, guess what? They're going to go into this one with a lot of fear, and it's going to keep the cycle going. If the last two trades were awesome, guess what? Now you're Superman. I'm going to put on more size, so that mindset will kill you, and you just got to be aware of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I tell my students and anybody that's like really actively trading, you have to think in terms of possibilities, right? Like everything that could happen, and then probabilities, not just in the mindset of, oh, I hope this trade works, or I'm afraid to lose money. It's like you have to keep a very objective, even keel balance. How did you do that? Like trading big size, obviously like the $1 million trade. What was that like mentally for you? And did that shake you up, or were you cool, calm, and collected through the whole thing?
No, it was hard. So the good news is I never had to take a lot of heat on that trade. So I got in the trade. It was one of those things, it was just taken off. So, I scaled into it. I started off and I just started building my position. And, at one point I was up about $100,000, and that was a big trade. And then I remember at one point I got up to about $200,000. It's like, okay, obviously this is an awesome trade. And it started to pull back. And that's always that, that moment when you're just like,
do I take it or do I let it ride?
Yep. So what I did is I went and took a shower. Which was the hardest shower I've ever taken in my life. I had to get away from the computer. I got in the shower. I just stayed there. I think it was like 20 minutes. I just had to get away from the computer. And then I came back, and Tesla had turned around and kept going higher. And I actually at that point just minimized the P&L. I didn't even want to know how much I was up. I was like, I am on a horse, and I'm going to ride this horse. And then from there, I got in my car, and I had a 30-minute drive from my car to my office. And of course, I'd check my quotes once in a while.
Oh my God. I can't imagine leaving the computer.
Yeah. And it's like the whole key is psychologically at that point, I knew that if I was staring at the P&L, I was going to screw it up. And I was like, as long as it's going in my direction, the P&L shouldn't matter. And by the end of the day, and it was great then, because at the end of the day, I was in the trading room and I'm showing him the trade, and we watched it go from like up $800,000 to over $1 million. Sold half, and then the next morning it gapped up like 10 points, and I sold the other half, and it was insane. It was just like,
so you held half of that trade overnight. I didn't know that. How did you sleep that night?
Oh, I was so excited because, well, first of all, it was, so at the end of the day, it was 1.1 million. I'd sold half, and then the next morning it gapped up. So the trade ended up making like 1.4, altogether. And at the open, I just couldn't, all night I was just like, oh, is this going to gap up? And and a horrible night's sleep. But the next morning it was just, selling it right at the open. And it was awesome. And it's just, but the lesson learned is that in that situation, it's just learning, like, if there's a horse that's running, how do you stay on it without getting overexcited and worried and feared about your profits? And that's what I found, is that it's like, you got to pretend you're trading a 10 lot or a 1 lot or something you're comfortable with, and which is very, very, very difficult to do.
Yeah, there's always this balance between fear and greed, right? And I feel like if you don't have conviction in a profit target or why you're in a trade, and as you've probably seen, like a lot of new traders, they close their trades too early and then they hesitate on entries. What was it that gave you confidence to hold for that big of a target? Was it a catalyst? Was it like earnings? And it was Tesla, right?
It was Tesla. So there was a catalyst. So the one thing that I did know is that Tesla had high short interest. So when you have a stock with high short interest, if it starts to go and you start getting some short covering, it's like, okay, But I remember on that day, I think it got traded as low as like $138. This was like January 14th, 2014, right around there, 14th, 15th, or 16th. But I didn't even see it until it got to like $150. So it already had made a 15-point turnaround. But the markets were kind of quiet that day. And here's this stock just ripping higher. The volume was off the charts. Now, I'd seen stuff like this before, and it typically just goes, all the way into the close. So I got in not really knowing what was going to happen. I'm like, okay, am I going to get a point here? But it ended up going from 150, and I think it closed like maybe 165, maybe a little bit higher than that. But it was just ran. Didn't really give me too many problems. But of course, anytime there was a little pullback, it was just always like, oh God, is this thing going to, roll over and die? And that's the part that's hard.
So you basically knew that there were a lot of people short. It was ripping for whatever reason. And through experience, you knew, okay, when sellers start to panic, it's kind of like when a market panics, when shorts start to panic and they start buying begets more buying, gets more buying. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then it sucks, breakout traders in and trend traders in. And then before you know it, you look back at the end of the day and you're like, oh my God, how did this thing get so high? So you had that vision that was going to be one of those all day trends. And you're like, look, don't freak out at every parabolic move. Just let it work.
Yeah. And part of it, and I think the trigger was like Elon Musk tweeted something out. So there was something that changed. Like I remember him, some announcement that caught, the short sellers unaware. And at the same time, I've been on the wrong side of a short trade that I just watched in disbelief as it kept going against me. So from experience of losing money in that situation, I was like, I knew what a short covering rally could do. So I had all that stuff going. But at the end of the day, it's managing that trade. I mean, that could have turned into a $50,000 trade, and I would have been like, oh, cool, I made some money on that. But it was just like, wow, this just being cognizant of the fact that this was a unique situation. Like Monday was a unique situation, right? I mean, this week's been a unique situation, and just being able to recognize it and capitalize on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so this week, basically, if you're watching this interview a month or a year from now, this week we had a big market correction. It was probably the most fear I've seen in the markets in several years.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Then we bounced back. How did you trade this week?
So Thursday and Friday, the markets were kind of soft. Thursday and Friday of the week before, right? So we had short signals all over the place. So we were positioned short, had no idea that was going to happen on Monday. But, in our trading room and stuff like that, I mean, we were short the NASDAQ futures, short the S&P futures, long VIX futures, puts on Google and puts on Netflix. So that's how we were set up. Of course, overnight, you're watching the markets just getting hammered. And it was actually kind of like that Tesla trade. I mean, I was looking at my NASDAQ futures short, and I had like 20 contracts. And at one point it was down 100 points, Sunday night. And I'm going like, all right, do I need to, do I take the profit here or just let it run? Because I got to go to sleep. And I just, to me, it was kind of like one of those things, like something big is going on here. This is unusual. Just stay. So then 5 minutes before the open, NASDAQ, Dow, and the S&Ps went limit down. So it's 5% overnight. And then when the cash session opened, all the margin calls hit. And it was like a mini flash crash where the S&Ps went from like 1871 and dropped straight to 1831, another 50 points. And at that point, it was just like, wow, this is really big. I held on because I thought we might get a little bit more downside. So then I ended up covering, once things started to rally. So if I would have covered at the exact lows, I would have made about, probably it was about 2.5 times as much as I did, but it ended up being the biggest trading day of the year. Nice.
Well, congrats, man. Yeah, I remember Sunday night, looking at the pre-market futures, and I actually did a live Periscope. I'm like, guys, something big's happening. This is the start of either a massive market panic or some extended volatility for at least a few days that we're going to be able to trade into. So that's cool that you guys had some awesome profits on that. Did you play much on the bounce too?
Yeah, so I did. So this is kind of goes back to like trader mentality. So Monday was a big day. Now I've learned, from doing this for a long time, that the worst state of mind you can have as a trader is euphoria. So I was euphoric after that. Everybody was euphoric, and I've done this long enough to know, like, okay, guys, the next trade I did was a one lot, and so we just kind of
bring you back to reality and
come back to reality. So on Tuesday. So we were flat Monday night. Tuesday, we gapped up. So I remember this because I shorted the gap up, and then it just traded sideways, and I just got out. I didn't like it. It rolled over and died, and I completely missed it. But at the close, I went long. And so the next morning we gapped up.
Yeah, that was the low of the week, I think, right?
Yeah. And so that was good. And then, today, the rest of the week's been light. So just to give you an idea, like over the weekend, I'm short 2 bond contracts, and I've got a put credit spread on Tesla that's small. So I'm in 90% cash, or 98% cash. So the idea this weekend is just to get some rest, have no anxiety or in the back of my mind wondering what the market's going to do. And then on Monday, show up with a fully loaded gun, meaning, neutral state of mind, almost 100% cash in my account. And that's kind of the plan.
I really like that. I mean, you that's one thing that you have to think about as a trader is your sanity, right? Like, when is it worth risking, overnight moves, and when isn't it? And a lot of people ask me that, aren't actively trading. They're like, so what do you think about the markets? Where are they going to be in a week? I'm like, I don't know. I don't care. I'm like, I wake up and I care pre-market, right? Like, that's when I form an opinion, is like a couple hours before the market opens Eastern Standard Time at 9:30. That's when I think you can actually gauge it and then have a plan of action. Is that kind of how you guys trade?
Well, it is. And I do. So my average holding time for a trade is like 2 days to 2 weeks. So that's kind of it's more of a kind of a swing trading, but I do some, a little bit of day trading. This week has been all about day trading because it's been so crazy. So I will, look at setups, especially on daily and weekly charts, and just kind of like, all right, for the next couple of weeks, this market should trend higher, whether it's, Google stock or, the S&Ps or whatever, and then take positions accordingly. But which means that, being able to kind of being willing to hold through maybe a day or two against you. But from there, in this kind of environment, it really is more day to day. I mean, you just want to cut your risk exposure and just kind of, I always say it's kind of like you're a cat and you're sitting there watching a bunch of birds at a feeder, and you're waiting for some bird to get cocky and stop paying attention. You just pounce, and it's like you take your money and then you come back and you just wait. And because what's going to happen is everybody else is going to be beating themselves up. They're going to be exhausted. They're going to be making mistakes. You step in, boom, grab it, get back out. And most importantly, you're protecting your principal, you're protecting your money from the markets, and you can kind of go in and out and time it and just continue building your account. And then when things kind of slow down, you can get back in and do another swing trade. Yeah,
that's really smart. I mean, I think a big thing about trading is being flexible. And, the past several years have been pretty nice for like what you're saying, like kind of swing trading and catching trends, because the volatility hasn't been insane. But like market environments like this, instead of like trying to pick tops and bottoms, it's like look at the intraday momentum and play that. And those moves can be what would have equated to like a week or two's worth of moves prior, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it is really just being flexible. I know it's different if you're working, like if you've got a job. But if you're doing it full time, obviously you have a lot more flexibility. From a job perspective, these kind of markets are fine too. It's just, you want to trade. The key on a market like this is like cut your position size by like down to a third or a quarter of what you normally trade. And then your stop loss is 3 to 4 times what it normally is. So now if you get stopped out, you're still risking the same amount of money, but the reality of it is you're going to be able to catch some of these moves.
Yeah. So lower position size, bigger stops, because bigger volatility, right? When you're in a contracting market, you can load up on size and keep it a little bit tighter. But now, especially with slips, like I actually had some slippage on the ES, like on some of these opens. I'm like, man, 3 ticks a slip. All right.
Oh yeah. Well, I was doing some mini Dow trades, and it was just like, oh my, the slip, and that's not a really, the volume on that is not awesome anymore. And it was just like, wow, that was some slippage, but there was some positive slippage too. So, it's just like, which was good too. You hit a target and it just blows right through it. So you actually end up getting a better fill.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So, so what else is going on? I know you guys got a new office. You said you guys just got some new office space. You took over a grocery store or something?
Yeah, so there was we're based in Austin, Texas, and it was a 5,500 square foot grocery store, and it got put out of business when a Randall's moved in down the road. So it was vacant for about a year, and we had been, there's about 20 of us total, but we'd been working in different, like 3 different apartment complexes, and I think you'd visited us a while ago when we were, you
had
it's a while,
apartments. That was awesome.
Yeah, and which we liked it. And so we thought, okay, it's time for us to all get together under one roof. So we had to gut it. We have a kitchen. It's kind of like, so we can kind of, refrigerators, a stove, so we can kind of, it's almost like a home, but it's just an office space. And so it's great. I mean, super fast internet. We can, trade together, plan stuff together, and it's been fun.
I guess the important question is, did they leave the beer cooler,
They
beer
did.
aisle?
We actually requested it, and we have 2 kegs as well.
Nice. The trader lifestyle, man. I love it. Cool. So I know you're always doing interesting things. You're always speaking at conferences and traveling around the world. And I know you've got a live class coming up. I want to link something up in this interview down below for anybody that wants to join your live class that's coming up. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So once a quarter we do, it's kind of like a, hey, this is what's working in the market kind of class. This one's going to be a little bit different. We have, coming up in a couple of weeks, what I like to do is, first of all, it's just kind of documenting what's happened this year. So from this year, I've got a model account. It started at $150,000. As of today, it's right at $700,000. And this is trading options and some futures. And what I wanted to do is just show trade by trade in quiet markets, which we've had quiet markets this year, volatile markets, obviously, is just kind of like, look, what's the idea of getting consistent, and how do you avoid, the things that get traders in trouble, and just kind of keep slowly building that equity curve. And so I'm just going to do like a webinar just to say, hey, look, usually like a Saturday class that just says soup to nuts. Like, look, if you want to do at least what I've been doing and what's been working for me, I'll show you everything. And then from there, a lot of times I always say, you can read a book about how to swing a golf club, but unless you actually go out and swing a golf club, it's kind of hard to learn. So we also do something where there's 3 days of live trading where you can actually sit there. You log in like on your computer and you can just watch me trade live. I put my account up there. You can follow me or not follow me, but at least you can see and practice like how it works. And so I've just found from a trading perspective, I enjoy doing it because it's like, I wish this is the kind of stuff that, somebody had showed me when I started. But from a trading perspective, to me, it's just like, it's always good to, like, on something like that, if you can just kind of like find one thing that can help you out with your own trading, it typically pays for itself. Typically, the feedback we've gotten on these is that they're very, very good in terms of like real information that you can use. And so yeah, we're looking forward to it, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, that's exciting. And I'll definitely link it up. And I always say the same thing, trading's a performance activity. It's one thing to read a book or watch a video on how to swing a golf club, but until you actually go to the driving range and learn how to nail it, you're not going to be able to play in a tournament, right? Which is really what the live market is like game time. And you have to do your preparation and go through those steps. So I think that'll be really helpful.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. The classes are always fun, and obviously it's great with the way the markets are. It should be a fun week.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, so do you have any other tips or anything that you would suggest for a new trader or somebody who's maybe struggling with consistency that you think could help like the biggest percentage of people?
The biggest thing is a lot of times if people are newer to trading, you've probably had your head handed to you. It's kind of like, oh man, this thing is frustrating. Just give yourself a break. That's just part of the tuition. It's like if you're running a business, you'd have expenses, right? Well, guess what? That's what your losses are. So don't beat yourself up over it. Do yourself a favor. Wake up on Monday, give yourself a clean slate and say, you know what? Instead of having in your mind like, oh, I got to make up the $10,000 I've lost this year, just, for lack of a better term, forgive yourself. That's just part of it. Start with a clean slate. And now, on your next trade, act like you're a professional trader. Okay. People know when they're not doing that, it's better to have 2 well thought out, well-planned trades and just kind of, shoot at the hip, 20 times. One thing I found that's helpful too, is if you've got, especially if it's like you're frustrated and you've got different positions on, go flat, go absolutely flat in your account, wait 3 days. And now you kind of settle down, clean slate, and start fresh, and just drop the baggage.
Flat is a position too, right? Like you are actively trading, even if you're flat. You don't have to be long or short to be active in the markets.
So I had a couple of mentors when I was trading. The best one by far told me, it's like, look, they'd been doing it for 30 years, multi-million dollars trading. And then they traded like 2 times a week. And this was futures, but they just sat there, and if they're set up, I remember one day there was, the S&Ps were up 20 and down 20 and they didn't do anything. And I was like, come on, dude, there was all this stuff going on. And he's like, well, my setup didn't happen. I was like, okay. And he said that the biggest mistake traders make is they lack what's called the patience gene. And he said, if you can develop the patience gene, you'll be able to do this. If you don't, you won't. I always remember that.
Yeah, it's like so many people want to feel like they're being productive, right? And if they're not clicking buttons,
right,
they're like, man, I'm just wasting time. But yeah, you don't have to catch every move in the market. All you have to do is nail one good trade every so often to be profitable, which is much better than trying to nail everything and then ended up losing money.
Yeah, and not only is it impossible to catch every move, but it's counterproductive because it screws with your head. You stop thinking objectively. And it's, if you think about, I was talking to someone the other day and they were down like 20%. And like, I think half of that was because of commissions. And there was one trade that they had done really well. And we were talking and I just kind of said, well, what if that was the only trade you had done this month? They'd have been up like 40% in their account. And it got them to thinking too, and it's going like, wow, so if I could just be patient and just wait, because when he took the trade, it was like it was one of those, wow, everything came together, it was clean, it was clear. But what happens is while we're waiting for that to happen, we get bored and we piss away our trading capital. Just, let's see what happens, ding, 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 oh, I got to get out of this. So not only are you distracted from real opportunities because you're, screwing around with this stuff, but you're pissing away your trading account. Doing all these little things that just don't work, it's a vicious cycle. And if you're aware of it, it helps just to, just take a breath and relax.
It is, man. And I always say, like, trading is like hunting. It's like if you're out hunting for a deer, you're not going to use up all your ammo on every squirrel that walks by, right?
I like that analogy. I may steal that, but I'll give you credit.
Oh, please do, man. I probably through the years have said many things that came from your book or, from your videos. John, for anybody that doesn't know, like, John Carter is one of like the mentors in the trading space that I really, really respect. And his education's awesome. His book is awesome. Like, go get it. And, we'll link up the live class below because I think everybody should be there.
Very cool. I like the saying that sticks in my mind is, don't shoot the sparrows when you're hunting for elephants.
Ah, that's nice. I like that one. Very cool. Well, John, thank you so much for your time, man. I'm sure like a lot of people out there are shaking their head in agreement going, oh my God, I've been doing that, or I could learn from that, or I should be doing that. So
it's all learned the hard way.
Yeah, you got to learn it one way. It can either be the hard way through years of pain, or you can take somebody's advice and go, okay, I'm going to take their word for it and just go this route.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, John. Again, guys, click the link below. I'll link it up, and you guys go trade live with John for a few days.
Cool, Chris. Thanks for having me on your show, and see you at the Open on Monday.
Absolutely.